Gaming Geek here with another Kickstarter from Xykit. This time around it is called Riddleroot Forest, and this is a set of STL files for some terrain as well as some miniatures. Previously I did a video for them with their most recent project, which was Pillars of Stone, which I have over here. If you want to check out that video, go ahead and check it out here. But Riddleroot Forest is a whimsical set that is focused on a whole storyline that Jason came out with, and you can read that on the Kickstarter page. But it has some whimsical pieces and trees, and particularly all of the miniatures are around this world of things being made out of wood, even animals, and these little guys that have these mushroom caps. So a lot of fun. We are going to go ahead and go on over to the computer and check it out and walk through the Kickstarter. There's going to be about 2 weeks after I post this video left of the Kickstarter, so check out the link below if you want to jump in on that. Jason was kind enough to offer up an all-in pledge of both the miniatures as well as the terrain, a $45 value that Bob the Beholder will pick at the end of the month, one of my Patreon supporters, to receive that. If you're interested in that, go ahead and click on the link below to check out my Patreon page. I really do like the style of these buildings, and they have a lot of character to them. I printed out the small cottage here, and there is another larger building, the shop, and hopefully we'll be able to unlock possibly more. Also, these trees are really awesome. This time around, I decided to paint them in sort of fall colors. And again, check out my painting tutorial for how I painted up this building, as well as this well. This well is one of my favorite wells that I've seen. There's a lot of 3D files that are available to make wells, but one of the reasons why I like this is not only the design, but also it has a working crank and handle. So you could choose to attach a little bucket to this along with some string if you wanted to do that. So I really like this a lot. I also decided to go with my blue roof theme that I was experimenting with some of my other 3D printed terrain files. So I think the colors turned out really well. So make sure you stay tuned with the painting tutorial, and you'll see how quick and easy it is to paint these up. Let's go ahead and go over to the computer and I can walk you through the Kickstarter. So here's the Kickstarter page, and you can watch this video at your own convenience. As I mentioned before, there will probably be about 2 weeks left by the time I post this video. And there's a whole backstory that you can read about. But you can see there's these really whimsical STL files for the miniatures. And what are you getting? So here is some of the tree folk. I think this wyvern bark is a cool dragon. And then these little animals are really cool too. And it does look like these are all different sculpts. So you're getting a variety of different animals, which I think is cool. And then you also can get these villagers. They look like gnomes, I think. And then here are the buildings. And again, I printed out this cottage here, but this larger shop is also available, which I think looks really cool. I like these buildings. You know, I have tended to start moving towards wanting to print out more whimsical looking buildings, even a little bit more on the cartoonish side, because I think it just has more character and style. So this fits in really well. And then you have a bunch of other terrain, like these stumps, and I printed out a couple of trees. Everything I printed was at 0.2 millimeter height on both my Prusa MK3S as well as my Ender 5. That produced enough detail for my tastes. So everything is sort of wood related, and already a couple of stretch goals have been unlocked. And we can see here evil vines, infected mushgubs, which are the mushroom type characters. There's going to be a campsite, a bridge, town bell, a wizard's apprentice, a wolf rider. So a bunch of other stretch goals that are available. And then here's sort of the backstory which I think is fun to provide a little bit of lore with what's going on. And Jason colorized the model so that you can paint it, you know, sort of the way that he has colorized it, just to give you a guide. And then these are sort of all of the larger files that you're going to be able to print out on a resin printer. And you can print out miniatures on an FDM printer. I would suggest using the settings, and Tom Tullis from Fat Dragon Games provides good tutorials on how to set up your FDM printer to be able to print out some detailed miniatures. But resin, honestly, if you're going to be doing a lot of miniatures, it is worth it to get a resin printer. They're pretty cheap, under $300. So my suggestion is getting one of those, although it is quite a bit more work. Check out some of my other videos where I talk about using resin printers. And I think that's about it. Also, here are the pledge levels. Just the train is $25, and then just the minis is $25. Or you can get both all in for $45 here, so you're saving $5. And this is going to be one of the GGGGs for the end of February 2021. And he shows you samples of actually printed files here, which I think they look fantastic. And the nice thing about this cup, you can put in one of those red party cups in there if you actually want to drink out of it rather than holding pencils and supplies. And then I also really quickly wanted to show you Jason's website. This is Xykit, because he has a ton of really cool products, and he actually helped me set up my laser when I purchased my laser, because he actually provides laser files for you to be able to cut these out if you do have a laser. There aren't actually a lot of people providing these laser files, so I'm glad that he's a resource if you've been looking for that. But obviously there's a ton of 3D print files as well, some of them from his previous Kickstarters. Others are individual files that he's made personally. I think this summoning circle is really cool. So if you're interested in just picking up, you know, a couple of things for your board, your gaming board, definitely check this out as well. So a ton of resources that are available here, as well as tutorials that he provides on how to paint these things. So make sure to check out his website, because I think it's a good resource for gamers. So there you have it. Please like and subscribe. Again, check out the Patreon page. Not only will this set be a giveaway for this month, but a number of other pledges and things are going to be given away. So check out my channel for that. Again, stick around for the painting tutorial. Otherwise, happy gaming, happy hobbying. We'll see you next time. So first thing, I prime my pieces with this camouflage 2x ultra cover dark brown for any of the brown pieces, and then for any of the stonework I am using this 2x ultra cover ultra matte slate gray. Krylon also comes out with a camouflage dark brown that I've used before, and they're pretty much identical. And also Krylon has a chalk dark gray that you can also use, but it's a little bit more expensive. Both of these you can get at Walmart for around $4, so these are relatively cheap. So what I did was I spray painted all of the trees the dark brown, as well as the roof here. The well, because it's mostly stone, I spray painted with the dark gray. And then with the bottom portion of the house, I actually first spray painted the chimney gray, and then I got the brown spray paint pretty close up to spray paint most of this gray. Now, if you don't have that much control over your spray, you can just spray paint the whole thing. I would suggest brown, and then go through and paint with gray. I'm going to show you that step because I need to just manually paint this with a brush down here. the dark gray. So either way will work, but in pieces where such a large section of this is going to be stone, I go ahead and try to spray prime these two different colors. So you can tell here though that I'm going to have to touch up the gray here as well as here because the overspray from the brown got on there as well as inside of here. So for the brush on gray, I do use Americana Zinc, and I am going to mix a little bit of black to it because it's not quite dark enough to match the gray. So I just grab a sable brush and mix these two colors together. Again, just add a little bit of black just to darken it up. Some to about this much. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect, but just dark enough here. And then you can touch up this side here where you got the overspray of the brown. And then also along the bottom foundation that is stone, you want that to be gray as well. And then you're going to want to do the chimney that's here on the inside. And you do want the paint to be pretty watery because you want the paint to go into the cracks. So go ahead and do all of that. Now, out of these pieces, this is the only piece where you need to do this. You know, with some of the other terrain pieces that I have painted, I've had to do this on multiple pieces, but at least for this set, this is the only piece where you're going to have to paint this dark gray. Now, what I am going to do is with this piece, I'm going to get my dark brown and paint the wood here, since I spray painted this whole thing with the dark gray. So this is the burnt umber from Apple Barrel. And then I'm going to grab the well and pretty much do the same thing that I did with the gray, but just hit up all of the wood that's on here, which is just this upper portion. So that's not going to be hard to do. Now that the dark gray is dry, I'm going to go ahead and grab the unadulterated zinc without the black, and now I'm going to just start doing some dry brushing onto any of the gray. And I'm using a smaller stiff brush to do this. And I buy these cheap horsehair brushes. I think I got mine at Hobby Lobby. You get a whole pack of them with a 40% off coupon. You know, just pay less than $10 for a big pack of different size brushes. And I've always found these brushes to be optimal with painting up terrain. And the reason why I'm using a smaller size brush here is because of this foundation, and I don't want to get too much of it onto the wood parts. So this allows me a little bit better control. Otherwise, I use a bigger brush, and also along the edges here where it's going to be touching the brown. Alright, next I'm going to use slate gray, which is a medium gray color for the final highlighting of these stones. And because this is a final highlighting, you don't want as much of this stuff going on as you did the other gray, just the slate gray. So just a little bit will be enough. And if you wanted a little bit more variation on these stones, before you do this layer, you can go in with some browns and some darker grays and paint up individual stones just to give a little bit of variation on the whole thing. But for the most part, with terrain, I usually don't do that much detailing, but that's definitely an option that you can have. since for the most part my painting tutorial is about speed painting and trying to get these finished as quickly as possible. I'm grabbing some milk chocolate, and this is going to be for all of the wood that you find. And normally I would use a bigger brush to do all of this wood, but because again there is some stone pieces that I don't want the brown to get onto, I need a smaller brush in order to do that. So just putting, and we're going to have to do 2 layers of this because the brown is so dark that a single layer of this milk chocolate doesn't show up very clearly. So after this dries, do a second layer, and I'm doing the walls as well. And as you can see here, I'm going against the grain so that the lines, the dark brown lines, are maintained for the wood, like so. Because you don't want to fill in the details or the lines. So do that for all of the wooden pieces. Don't forget here for the well that you're doing the same thing. Next I'm taking honey brown, and I'm going to mix that with the milk chocolate just to get a little bit lighter brown, and I'm going to touch up all of the wooden parts that I put 2 layers of right now. Alright, I'm going to use this color sample that I made. It was originally this toffee berlingot, but they don't make this. Americana doesn't make this color anymore. And I just took it into Lowe's and they mixed it for me. And here are the numbers in case you want to have them mix you up a sample right across here along the bottom. And this is the base A color sample. And if you don't want to do this, you can just use a white and mix it with a little bit of brown just to get any kind of beige color. That's what you're aiming for. And here I'm going back to my sable brush, and this is actually the most time consuming step out of the whole thing, and that is painting up the walls this beige color. And I actually like leaving an edge. And the reason why this is so time consuming is because you have to be able to do a pretty clean line of paint along the borders. So if you don't have a very steady hand, this step can be frustrating. But just practice doing some clean lines like this. And I'm just leaving a little bit of dark brown that functions as a border. So I'm not going all the way up to the edge. But see how I'm creating a nice clean line. Another trick to remember is keep your brush fairly wet so that you can do these lines easily. And because my brush is wet, I'm not getting a consistent layer. Got some right there, but that's okay. Consistent layer of color, there is going to be variation, but I find that variation actually looking fairly authentic. You can, if you want, just do 2 coats, and that will provide some consistency with the color, but I actually don't mind the variation. And in some of these spots you might find it easier to go to a smaller brush just to be able to avoid hitting any of the wood or the bricks like I did right there. So I might go back and just grab a little bit of gray and paint over that. But this is pretty much the last step that you're going to need to do with at least the lower building portion. We're going to wrap up this painting project with True Blue. I recently discovered that I really like having this blue color for the roof. Traditionally I use like a rustic red for my roofs, but I'm liking this brighter blue color. Reminds me of Warcraft. So you just want to be careful in getting these edges so that you're not touching the wood. But once you get that, go ahead and just dry brush here, maintaining some of the dark brown underneath. And I will do 2 coats of this.